the Black community, the wealth gap in the Black community is valued today at $14 trillion. And that's the number 14 with 12 zeros behind it. And even sadder than that, it grows by $300 billion a year, which is almost $6 billion a week, right? It's massive how far we are behind when it comes to building wealth. So to be honest with the next generation and tell them, hey, each generation has an obstacle to overcome. And your obstacle, our obstacle is be able to teach these kids so that they can do better than we are with money, so they can overcome this and have more generational wealth, right? So to frame the conversation, to let them know why we're talking about this in the first place. We're talking about this because we have a huge mountain that we have to climb, but we can climb it. It's absolutely possible. One of the statistics that I learned was that since the year 2000, right, our income in the Black community has grown, or our purchasing power has grown by 171%. So in 2022, we had $1.6 trillion of spending power, 1.6 trillion. And, you know,
Malik's First Job Podcast, here to answer any questions that y'all ask. Financial literacy and resources, parents and young people becoming bosses, CEOs, future leaders, entrepreneurs, conferences and boardrooms getting sponsors secured. If you want generational wealth, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip with information to help. Malik's First Job Podcast, Malik's Podcast, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip, Kerwin Phillip. Malik's First Job Podcast, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Generational wealth.
Greetings, how you doing today? This is Kerwin Phillip with another episode of the Malik's First Job Podcast, where we speak about leadership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy for parents and teens. We have a great guest today, a young man here in the Richmond, Virginia area who focuses on financial literacy for young people, right? So we have the great James Lambert as our guest today. What's going on, James?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Kerwin, man?
Good, I'm good. So for people who aren't familiar with who you are and what you do, please tell them about yourself.
So basically, first off, it's an honor to be here, man. I'm grateful to be on your platform, man. I've been watching you for a while, and you do amazing things in the community, man.
Thank you.
My name is James Lambert, and I'm basically a big geek. That's why I got this big shiny forehead right here. You know, I spent a greater part of my life trying to fill it full of useful information I could use. So my educational background is I have a Bachelor in Economics. I got a Master's in Finance, a Master's in Real Estate, and I'm currently working on a PhD in Public Policy and Administration. That's why I'm sitting in this computer lab right now. So I'm just a big geek that's always been interested in money. I always ask kind of the right questions and the wrong questions at the same time. I was a guy who, like my dad, he had a house in the east end of Henrico County, and he added addition on there when I was maybe like 10 or 11 years old. And I would just ask the wrong questions. I said, man, how much is this costing? Is it adding value to the house? We're the only ones doing this. Are you sure this is a good investment? So instead of like shutting me down, my father encouraged me to, go find my own answers. So I've always been on the path to finding answers when it comes to economics, when it comes to wealth, and when it comes to building generational wealth, man.
Wow. So I know you have a platform that's called, I guess, Dollars and Cents.
Yes, sir. Right. My platform is Dollars and Cents, and the reason we say that is because we say that dollars and cents, when combined in the right way, lead to generational wealth.
Okay. So what was your path to actually starting this platform?
Man, it's actually been, I guess, like a lifelong kind of journey.
Okay.
I realized way back in the day when I was an undergrad taking accounting classes, I realized that the way that they were looking at like financial budgets for corporations was very similar to how we could look at things. But I had a professor tell me that most organizations, they lose money through their variable expenses, and you can tell when the economy is about to go down because McDonald's won't give you as much ketchup. And I said, man, that makes sense. They trying to save, on how much they spending just by cutting on the variable expense. I said, I could do the same thing. If I just start not to spend so much on clothes and food, it'll change my budget, it'll change my outlook. So,
Right.
every class I went to, even though we were talking about, organizations or corporations, I always tried to apply it to my personal life. So
Okay.
as I went through my educational process, I started to realize, some things that made me feel good, and some things that really made me feel bad, especially about our community, because we live in the most wealthy country in the world, but we aren't taking advantage of this, of the wealth that's here. And it's mostly because we don't know about it. So I just got together with a couple of friends. We had a great conversation one day, and I said, I'm gonna take the stuff that I learned, and I'm gonna change things. I'm gonna offer it to kids. I came across a very beautiful quote by Confucius. He said thousands of years ago that if you plan for a year, you want to plant rice. If you plan for 10 years, you want to plant trees. But if you want to plan for the next 100 years, you want to educate kids. And I said,
Wow.
that's where I'm going to spend my time. That's where I'm going to spend my energy. That's where I'm going to spend my life.
Wow. 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 So how did you actually get it started?
I actually came up under somebody else's organization. It was another young lady who was teaching financial literacy, and she gave me an opportunity to come in and do some things with the kids for a couple of classes. And I realized that our community is great when it comes to hitting that remix button, right? We're great at making remixes. So
Okay.
I realized that even though I would teach these games to these kids, that I can kind of take what I was teaching them and tweak it and make it a little bit different, make it a little bit more real, make it a little bit better. So as I did this, I realized that, I can kind of start my own thing. And she gave me the blessing to go ahead and do my own thing. So I stepped out and, on a wing of faith. And I just, started my website, started marketing, and started offering free class in the community to be able to teach kids kind of my game. I created a game where, we could teach kids the realities of being an adult. And give them the experiences, like we are talking about earlier, the experiences of learning how to handle money in a proper, healthy, beneficial way before the money actually hits their hands.
Right. 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 Now, are there any like challenges that you face when we trying to teach this stuff to young people? Because a lot of times people think about finance and economics as always so complicated, it's hard to understand. But how do you, I guess, what's the word I'm trying to think? Like trickle it down to where a child could understand it.
Oh yeah, I just meet them where they are, because the funny
Okay.
thing is, man, kids are geniuses. There's absolute genius. There's brilliant kids in our community, so they already know about money. I mean, first and second grade, they already know about money. They already asking their parents, "Hey, just swipe your debit card to get the candy." I know you got a debit card. Just swipe the debit card and get me
Right.
some candy. They already know about money, so it's just being able to kind of take them where they are and kind of tweak them in a more healthy direction. So I was teaching a class, a really young class. We were playing like Monopoly, and this is like second grade. And one of the girls, because this is a COVID time, so I'm at the front of the class. One of the young ladies who come up to me, she's, I'm telling her, about real estate. I'm like, yeah, you got to buy some real estate in order to be able to get rents from it, and that's how you make money as a real estate investor. And she looks at me, she says, "I'm not giving you my money. I'm keeping my money in my pocket." And I said, "Wait, you got to be able to buy some real estate. You got to spend some money to make some money." And she says, "Do I have to spend real money or do I have to spend Monopoly money?" And I said, it's just Monopoly money. I'm going to take it with me when I leave. And she looks at me dead in my eye and says, "I'm going to save this money, and that's how I win this game." And she goes and sits back down. And that let me know somebody had already put in her mind to save money. She had already had that in her mind and heart. And she was going to pinch Abraham Lincoln until he cried. And as I'm talking with the teacher, we laughing about it. I'm saying, it's a beautiful thing that somebody has already got that in their mind, but to be able to let that go for things that are going to bring you more money, that's the next lesson she already needs to get. So our kids at a very young age already know some things, and it's just being able to kind of push them in a direction, because they all want to have money. Even when I do elementary age, middle, high school kids, they all doing things they see on TikTok. They all got the money fans, because we play with movie money. That's how my game is created. It's based on movie money. So they do the money fans, they do the money down their arm. And so they already are used to these things, but it's just being able to say, hey, you can't really, that's not going to make you no money. It's cool, it looks like fun, but if you put your money in the bank, you'll be able to take your money from the bank and invest in these things, and then you'll be able to have more money. And then at the end of the game, they start to realize, oh, okay, that light bulb cuts on. And that's what I'm in it for. I'm in it to cut those light bulbs on.
Right. Now it's funny. You speak about educating the children, and me and my friends have this conversation all the time. Is that we spend the time trying to educate young people about the science of how money works and things like that. But then once they leave your workshop, they go back home, right? And then because when we were coming up, there wasn't a big all this stuff about financial literacy didn't exist back then. It wasn't like a big push to teach us how to manage money, right? But now these kids are going home, and their parents may not have the same concepts or understanding of how money works. How do we counteract that, right? Whereas you spend all this time instilling this stuff into the children, but then they go home and pick up bad habits.
So, man, that's a great question, man. I'm happy you asked that question because it's a generational thing, and we have to call it what it is. Like if it is what it is, it is what it is. So we are in a place where we have to, just be honest with the kids and tell them that we're in a generational deficit. And we also have to be honest with the parents. Whenever you transition, you're going to pass your assets on to your kids, and you want them to be able to build more wealth. So I did a class with St. Luke Legacy Center where I was talking to their parents about how to do certain things for the kids. And some of the game I was giving them is, put the kids in places where they can learn. So you want to be able to, I have an Amazon Fire Stick. And on the Amazon Fire Stick, there are free news websites. There are free news channels, free news broadcasts, right? Some of them have Bloomberg, CNBC, and different things that we just aren't exposed to culturally. To put your kids in front of these things for 10 minutes and just allow them to soak up the information will go far if you do that for a couple of months. You know what I'm saying? Because it's true. In our community, we look at money in a particular way. Like we like cash. We like to spend cash on shiny things that are financially liabilities. And to admit these things and to tell the next generation, hey, you're the one that's going to break this generational curse on how we deal with family, is how we set things apart, is how we have the real change. So I have some of the most fun when I actually can do the class with parents and with kids and adults, because it's like I can have the conversation, and what they do is the parents end up coaching the kids. Hey, go do this thing. Hey, go do that thing. And that's exactly what it should be in reality. So when they go home, it's okay for our community to love basketball, right? Like I got uncles who can tell you what Michael Jordan scored, you know what I'm saying, when he got his third ring. But to change that conversation and say, hey, what was the economy doing while Michael Jordan was doing these things? What was the price of Nike stock the year you were born? So one of the things I tell them to do is, you can do something called birthday and Christmas stocks. So whatever the most popular toy or gift is that year, also buy them stock. So if it's Disney, if it's a Disney toy that your kid wants, buy them a piece of Disney stock. And then you get them to track it. You get them to pay attention to it. Because now you're building that muscle into them to become financial literate, to become stronger. Because financial literacy is a language. I was telling my homegirl, she's from Ghana. If I go to Ghana right now, I'm illiterate. I can't speak. I can't listen. I can't write the language. It's going to be hard for me to survive. So the language of financial literacy is being able to speak, to be able to understand, and to be able to write about money in the most wealthy country in the world. And I think that's where our next pivot is as a culture.
Right. And I like the idea when you speak about birthday stock, because that's something that I did myself, like with my kids and my nieces and my nephews. Like it was one Christmas, I'm like, I'm not buying y'all, no little trinkets and stuff like that. I'm giving y'all like $50 or I'll give you $100. Go open up a Robinhood account or whatever. I think we had a big conversation. Okay, which brokerage accounts allows you to have custodial accounts? And I'm gonna talk to your mother and your father, and we're gonna set up these accounts for you all, right? That way, instead of me buying you Nike stock, instead of me buying you a pair of Nikes, you can buy some Nike stock, right? You can be part owner, right? So, I think it's very important that we do that, right? And it kind of shifts the paradigm and shifts the conversation and shifts the mindset. Because like with my son, he has Nike stocks. And I remember last year, he had a vote on the board of directors, right? And like we got the email, and I said, like, I got the email because I got the account. But I said, you know what? I told him, I said, look, you got to vote for these folks at Nike. He's like, I don't know who these people are. I'm like, I don't know who they are either, but just look at the names and see what name you like, and just pick from there, right? And but I told him, I said, now if you didn't own any stock, they wouldn't be asking you anything. If you just took that same amount of money and just bought a pair of shoes, you would have no input as far as who leads the company or who who's on that board of directors. So it changes that mindset from just not being a consumer, but also thinking as an owner as well.
And the power that ownership has.
That's right. And I told them, like the kids I spoke to yesterday, I said, when you own a pair of stocks, you view those Nike releases a little bit differently, right? When you stand out, if you own a share of Nike stock, knowing that you're going to get some dividends if the company is profitable, and you run past Foot Locker and you see a line of people ready for that new Jordan release, you're going to look at that a little bit differently as an owner, as opposed to you just standing in line yourself trying to buy it as a consumer. It's a different mindset. It's a mindset shift that takes place.
Absolutely. And
Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens, is an excellent resource to get your children started on understanding the basics of financial literacy. This book, which is set in Brownsville, Brooklyn, about a young man who gets his first job and then shortly thereafter sits down with his dad to learn how to manage his money. There are several topics that are covered within this work, such as paying yourself first, disciplining your spending, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, creating multiple sources of income, as well as the importance of being charitable. So again, if you want to get your children started on understanding finance and becoming responsible adults, we highly recommend that you purchase the book, Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. So please visit maliksfirstjob.com to get more information. Peace. Peace. Are you looking for a way to teach your kids about money management and responsibility? Look no further than the GreenLight card. The GreenLight card is a debit card for kids that parents can manage through an app, giving you complete control over where and how much your child spends. With the GreenLight card, you can start teaching your kids valuable financial lessons while earning rewards at the same time. For more information about GreenLight and to get started, please click the link in the show notes below. Thank you.
And it's almost like the same level of excitement, right? It's like the new shoes are coming out. Ooh, I'm gonna get them. It's like the new shoes coming out. Ooh, I'm gonna make some more money.
That's right.
And it benefits you in a whole different way, right? Because the shoes not gonna last. The shoes not gonna last the stocks at all.
Exactly. Now you mentioned that you speak to parents about the concept of generational wealth. What are some of the tips that you share with them to help? I know you mentioned you tell them to kind of watch the news and things of that sort. But do you have like any other tips that you share with the parents to help them educate the children?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The first tip is being honest, right? Being honest. We have to be aware where we are as a community. So and that's one of the things I was talking about earlier that I learned in school that just kind of made me sad. The black community, the wealth gap in the black community is valued today at $14 trillion. And that's the number 14 with 12 zeros behind it. And even sadder than that, it grows by $300 billion a year, which is almost $6 billion a week, right? It's massive how far we are behind when it comes to building wealth. So to be honest with the next generation and tell them, hey, each generation has an obstacle to overcome. And your obstacle, our obstacle is be able to teach these kids so that they can do better than we are with money, so they can overcome this and have more generational wealth, right? So to frame the conversation, to let them know why we're talking about this in the first place. We're talking about this because we have a huge mountain that we have to climb, but we can climb it. It's absolutely possible. One of the statistics that I learned was that since the year 2000, right, our income in the black community has grown, or our purchasing power has grown by 171%. So in 2022, we had $1.6 trillion in spending power, 1.6 trillion. And, we have the power to be able to change things generationally just by making the right decisions. So one of the things I tell parents is make the kids aware, have the conversation about what we expect, and then also tell them about what the family has done. We have to have conversations, open conversation about, hey, Uncle Bobby is in the real estate, and this is how he got into it. You know, Aunt Jenny is in the stocks. This is how she got into it. You know, just so they can start to see things from a realistic perspective and give them people they can go to and have conversations with. Also, giving them books. So just like your book, man, Malik's First Job, man, I recommended that on with the St. Luke Legacy Center. I was like, man, y'all got to get that book and y'all got to read that book. But
I appreciate that.
Of course. But there are so many different books that the kids can have and kids can read that will, like you said, tap into their mind and change their mindset. Rich Dad, Poor Dad for teens, The Richest Man in Babylon. There's so many books, podcasts they can listen to, even apps on the phone, on their computer, right? Because that's where most of our kids are. Most of the kids on the phone all day. So there's a Rich Dad, Poor Dad game called Cash Flow that's on there that kind of teaches real estate and stocks. There's a Monopoly, which is one of my favorite because that's where, you know, we all first started in Monopoly. I'm about the foundation. It's the foundation. I'm about a whole block, and everybody's gonna pay me rent. And like get them in that. So games, what was I saying? Podcasts, the news, getting them to read, getting them to actually read maybe like 2 or 3 articles a day. That's another way I got started was by I think my uncle had me reading the Financial Times newspaper. But they, you know, you don't really have to spend money on this stuff now. You can go on Google and you can look up financial news. And there's so much financial news out there. And getting them in the habit of looking for it and then telling you what they find, right? Because that's the magic right there. Because it's like I said earlier, when we ultimately transition, they're going to have all our wealth. And we want to make sure that they're good stewards to our wealth. Because generational wealth doesn't just build itself, right? Like it's not only what we give the next generation, but how they manage it and build for the next generation behind them. So to get them in the mindset of, oh, I can not only make money and learn about money, but I can also teach other people about it. You know what I mean? Like that's like I said, that's what I do it for. So getting them to understand, getting parents to understand that it's a generational thing, right? And that they have the power to be able to put their kids in a position to understand the game in a far better way than we can. Because when I first started investing, we didn't have Robinhood. We didn't have these free things. I had E-Trade. And I want to say E-Trade, you had to spend like maybe $10 per transaction. So it was different. In my parents' generation, they actually had to go to a stockbroker. So the what they call in economics, the barrier to entry or the obstacles to get into stock investing are lower than they ever been. So and the ability to get the information and knowledge is lower than it's ever been. So at a certain point, they're going to be able to have more knowledge than I will. And it's just making them aware. You have more knowledge, you have more access, and you have more ability to be able to find success in these things. You know what I mean?
I remember, like with my oldest son, I wanted when he was like a teenager getting his first job. I remember telling him that I want him to kind of put away 10% of the money that he earned, and my intention was to take that money and have him invest in stocks. And this was like the mid to early 2000s, and I was trying to find a way to invest. I'm like, okay, I didn't know how to do it. And I was looking, I guess the internet was still kind of fairly new or whatever. And I'm trying to look online. You had to go like a whole bunch of hoops that you had to jump through to really get started in investing. And I think about that time then versus what it is now, it's a whole lot easier, right? You know, everything's at the touch of your hand versus me having to go look up and go through a stockbroker and all this other stuff that was very complicated. Needless to say, I didn't end up buying any stocks. But he still got a lesson out of it because we was able to save that money and put it to the side. And this job that he had was a summer job. So he was done at the end of the summer, and it came around Christmas time, and he may have had like $300 or $400 saved up that he forgot about.
Right.
You know, 'cause I remember at first he gave me some pushback about me taking the money. Then he's like, okay, you know, he had no choice. I was having to take it. I mean, regardless. But then it came around Christmas time, and he wanted to buy something, and I was like, well, you know, you still got that like $300 or $400 that you got from over the summer. He's like, oh, I forgot about that. I'm like, now just imagine if I had let you keep it, you'd have spent it all, and you wouldn't have had nothing to come look at, come December, So, we do these different things to implement. At times, our kids don't really understand it at the time, but in the long run, when they see the benefit of it, I think those lessons really stick in. Right?
But what you spoke to is so powerful, man, because it's I might have heard something maybe last week. It's the power of direction, right? Like, what's his name? Tiger Woods wouldn't have been the best golf player in the world if his father didn't direct him in the right direction. Serena Williams and her sister wouldn't have been the best tennis players in the world if their parents didn't push him in the right direction. Michael Jackson wouldn't have been the best singer in the world if his father didn't push him in the right direction. So that direction that we give our kids, especially when it comes to financial literacy and building this generational wealth, will go years into the future.
Yes. So you also spoke about the spending power that we have. It's like $1.6 trillion. How is it that we have all that money that we're earning? Where's it going? But we have like nothing to show for it.
It's unfortunately it's two things that happen, right? So I'll talk about the second one first, because the second one is kind of easy to talk about because it also speaks to financial literacy. And the second one was the recession in 2008. In every recession, unfortunately, Black people are always the biggest losers. And in that recession specifically, the biggest losers were Black mothers, Black single mothers, because they had been steered into adjustable rate mortgages and mortgages that just really didn't benefit them. So the biggest losers during that time, and they lost so much wealth that the Black community still is trying to repair our communal wealth from that time period. So a lot of it is not knowing how to purchase real estate at the proper time and in the right way, right? Because adjustable rate mortgages, when the interest rate goes up, and because that's what happens, right? When the recession happens, the interest rate is going to go up. If you got adjustable rate mortgage, your interest rate on your mortgage is going to go up, and your mortgage payments will go up. And so many people lost their houses because of it. They just weren't aware. But unfortunately, we were steered in that direction. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just how the system works. Another thing that happens is that we value the wrong things in our community. So I was talking earlier about how, we got this thing in our community now doing money fans and playing with money, doing things with money that me and you might not have done in our generation because it just wasn't cool. It wasn't acceptable. It was just not the thing to do. So we think having cash is more valuable than having a bank account. We think having Nike shoes is more valuable than having Nike stock. And it's just because we are of the mindset that the value that we have to put on our bodies, or that somebody else has to see the value on us in order for us to be value in us. And it's just a mindset. It's a mindset, man. And to be able to break that mindset is a good thing. One of the most beautiful lessons I had when I knew I was really doing something right is I give the kids options on what they're going to spend their money on in the class, but I give them options on whether they're going to buy stuff or whether they're going to buy stock. So some of the kids, they start to buy like Nike shoes, right? Or like shoes that are really cool. I call them nicey shoes because I'm not trying to get sued. And and then another kid will buy the Nike stock, right? And the stock price goes up and down. They're taking advantage of it. And one of the kids, he comes to me one day and he's like, "Man, how did Johnny get more money than me?" And it's like, "Well, you've been buying the Nike shoes and Johnny's been buying the Nike stock." And he looked at me and said, "Oh yeah." Instant change. He started buying the Nike stock now. And it's like, it's the mindset to know that ownership is what we want. We just don't want to have, we don't want to just purchase stuff. We want to have stuff that we can own and that will appreciate in time and not depreciate. Another big misconception in our community is that thinking that cars are assets. And it's like, no, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it drops in value. Unless you got a 1950s Chevrolet Impala that somebody's going to pay you more for in 10 years than you pay for today, it's not an asset. So to be able to properly define things that bring us more money, and that's like I said, man, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to stuff like that.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. Now you said we have, I guess nowadays we have to focus on ownership and things of that sort, right? Now, I'm going to go back in history. Now, there's been a series of events that we've had, right? If you go back to the Freeman's Bank, you look at the Black Wall Streets, not just in Tulsa, You look at here in Jackson Ward,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Rosewood in Florida, the cities they had in Atlanta, Sweet Auburn Avenue, in Greensboro, North Carolina. Back when we came out of during Restoration, we had a focus on ownership. We had a focus on entrepreneurship. We had a focus on, you know, financial literacy and, you know, building wealth. But then every time we try to set something up, other people became jealous. Other people manipulated things to take advantage. And we see what we've built get destroyed, right? You speak about the recession back in 2008, where people were taking steps towards home ownership, but you had other people who stepped in and manipulated the game so that we ended up falling from that, you know, from that investment, right? Now, what do you say to people who have the mindset of every time we try to build, other people come in and destroy what we've created? So what's the use in continuing to try to do that?
Oh man, I just had an image of my dad's house. He had like a little front on his front porch. He had a light, right? Mm-hmm. And every spring the birds would build the nest there. Every spring, without fail, right? And we would destroy that nest, and they would build a nest in the trees, but they would eventually always come back. And I want to say that we have to also have that same mindset of resilience. So we have to know our history, especially when it comes to the Freedman Bank, especially when it comes to Black Wall Street, especially when it comes to Rosewood, because we have to be aware, especially when it comes to Jackson Ward, because the things that are going on in our community now, we have to be aware of the gentrification, right? But in my mind, gentrification may be an opportunity for us to find value, because if they're coming into our communities and they're purchasing our homes, then we have to be the ones who benefit from that. Generationally, right? It's like, don't sell grandma's house. No, you fix grandma's house up and you rent it out. And that's how you fix all these generational issues that have been occurring for generations. So, like I said earlier, having a conversation, being aware of what's going on and what has happened to our community so that we make sure we don't go through these things again. So even when I see, like you said, the 2008 recession and how Black women were taken advantage of, my first thought is, okay, we have to educate Black girls about real estate investing. We have to make them aware that you don't have to take the first loan. You shop around. And you get the loan that's best for you, because then you will benefit in a way that we haven't in the past. That's how you protect yourself. You protect yourself by having information and education. And it's unfortunate, but we have to, I saw a quote that said, we have to learn how to build on the ashes from the past. We have to. We don't have a choice. So, but we got to know that these are ashes, right? And we got to know how we're taking advantage of to make sure it doesn't happen again. So sometimes, you know, our community is taken advantage of by other communities. So that means we have to go around them and in different places. So there's another book that I read that said that the world is flat, right? Because of the internet, you know, we have access to so many things that we didn't have access to in the past. So my grandparents probably only had one bank they can go to get a loan. I can probably find 20 in 20 minutes. But to know that I can do that, right, and to take advantage of these things is the blessing of knowing how the past influences the future. Because to have a defeatist attitude when it comes to building wealth, that's not going to benefit us. We have to be encouraged by the past, even though it's ugly, even though it's not pretty. We have to be encouraged by the past, because knowing your past will help you define a good path for the future, right? Because we live in the most wealthy country in the world. And this is how I always start the conversation out. We live in the most wealthy country in the world. And because you're born here, it's your birthright to be able to take advantage of that wealth. But you have to be smart. You have to be intelligent. You have to be aware of what's going on. Exactly.
Right. And I believe that, you know, the steps that, you know, you're taking, the steps I'm taking, and a host of others to try to this whole, again, this financial literacy movement, this train that's taking storm, you know, across the planet is very important, especially, you know, as we teach our young people. Like I said, we have to teach them the history so they can see, okay, this is what happened in the past. This is where we kind of dropped the ball, or, you know, this things that happen, so that as you're trying to create your own portfolios of investments and businesses that when you see that thing coming, you know how to counteract it, right? And keep going and keep moving forward.
That's it. You got it. You got it.
Right. So for people that are interested in, reaching out to you and getting more information, or people that want to book you for a workshop, where can they find you?
So my website is www.dollars, DOLLARS, the letter N, SENSE.fun, because that's what we do. We have fun. We play games and we have fun. I also used to be in the Army. And one of the things I did in the Army was I helped train our unit to go to Iraq. And I realized that the Army has a very specific way they train. They have a conversation about what they do, then they role play and they do it, and then they have a conversation about what happened. So that's what I do with my game. I tell them about what we're going to do, then we do the thing, and then we talk about what happened so that we can learn from it. So www.dollars, the letter N, sense, SENSE.fun. My Instagram is at the same, at $, My personal Instagram is at Mr. Mr.Lambo, LAMBO, RVA. So reach out to me, DM me, hit me on the website. I'm always down for a conversation because this is a passion. This is what I love to do, man.
All right, no doubt. Now, when I first saw your Instagram, it said Mr. Lambo, RVA. I said, I wonder that's the brother who drives a Lamborghini around here.
No, that's not me. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. I wish him the best. But no, that's not me.
Not you?
Lambo's a nickname I picked up in the Army from being Lambert. They call me Lambo sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like that finance literacy stuff working out for him real good. You got the Lamborghini.
It's working out good, but I don't know if I would get one if I could get one. You know what I mean? There's a house somewhere that needs to be purchased with that Lambo money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So are there any closing thoughts you want to share before you wrap up today?
No, I'm just grateful to be a part of your podcast, man. I've been watching, I've seen what you're doing, and I salute you, man, because,
hey,
we're all part of the same army with the same mission.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you for taking the time again for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to go to my website, maliksfirstjob.com. We have access to the books. There's other merch that you can purchase from the website. There's also a link. Malik's First Job partnered with Atlantic Union Bank to offer free online finance literacy modules. So go to the website, register. Again, just educate yourself more about financial literacy. So definitely, thanks again, and we see you all next week. Peace.
Generational wealth.